I am Gregory, and this is Pensane. On the table, we have what is one of my Grail pens. So I had seen these a number of times on Chris Saines's channel, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Chris, but yes. And I knew I had to have one of these. It didn't even matter which model. It just had to be one of these pens, an OPUS 88. I think she typically shows the Coloro and the Omar. Those are a couple of the main ones she shows. Those are a little bit more expensive than this one. So this is the Halo. And I love eyedropper pens. And that's basically what OPUS 88 makes, is eyedropper pens. So this was hovering around or just under the $100 mark. So I wasn't ready to pull the trigger on it. And this, the Halo, came up just a little over $70 at Jet Pens. Now this was some time back, so I'm assuming whatever sale that was is no longer in effect, but I did pick this up at Jet Pens. All right, so I'm very, very excited about this pen. Again, the OPUS 88 Halo, and you see here it's the blue and a broad nib. As many people mentioned, they kind of do over packaging, but it's gorgeous. And it really gives you an experience. This is, okay, it's a magnetic closure, yes. All right, here we go. Nice. There's the pen. It comes with an eyedropper because it is an eyedropper pen. However, I won't be needing this, and you'll find out why. Oh, I forgot about this. They include a little notebook. That is so cool. Okay, so here's the pen. Just a demonstrator. Yeah, it's threaded cap. Ah, yes, the blue refers to the grip section there. Now, I believe this is one of their smaller pens. It has kind of a frosted look to it. Has the clip. Some nice detail on the clip there. I like that. The top finial is very flat, and this one is a little more rounded. That's a nice looking pen. The threading there, yeah, that would be threading. The threading there kind of gives it an interesting look. I like that. I like that. It's a very, very light pen. I would consider it fairly normal size, but as far as the OPUS 88 pens go, from what I've seen, it's on the small side. But that's great. Look at that. Very, very light pen. So I'm going to compare the looks to another pen real quick. Now this is a much larger pen, obviously. Well, not that much larger, I guess, but so this is the Asa Pens Galactic. This is another eyedropper fill demonstrator. You saw have that kind of frosted look to it. This one, the frosted look doesn't seem quite as refined. You can see some scratches and that sort of thing. This is a pen from India, by the way, which normally I love, but this particular pen just The first time I loaded it up with ink, it leaked into the cap. I took out the nib and the feed and put them back in, perhaps more securely, and I think that problem is resolved, but now it has issues with hard starts, and I mean hard starts. I consider this pen looking a little more refined. All right, so we are looking at this one. Let's look at that nib. A very, very small nib. I'm guessing that's a number 4 nib, maybe? I could be entirely wrong, but it looks very, very small. But that's okay, because the pen itself is fairly small, especially unposted. So I know you have to unscrew it, because, and hopefully you're able to make out, it has a little stopper right there. So that's a funny sound. So when you have it screwed all the way down, it blocks it so that even though it's an eyedropper, no ink is going to get out of there. So you're just going to have the ink that's already in the feed and on the nib. So this is one that you have to unscrew, you know, when you're writing. And you probably don't even have to unscrew it very much, just a little bit. Yeah, but for loading purposes, I'm sure, you know, the more we open it, the better. Okay, it looks okay, and then when it gets to a certain point, you can just pull it out. I'm not sure why you would need to do that, but all right. So then this certainly unscrews. Of course, you have the O-ring there, stopping any leaks. And you have a nice wide opening that, I mean, you could actually even just pour directly from like a sample vial. You could just pour directly in there, no problem. But it's an eyedropper fill. And again, it comes with this one. So if you don't have an eyedropper, don't worry, it comes with one. But the ink I have in mind, the bottle is so large that it comes with its own eyedropper. So this is Birmingham Pen Company, Heron. And I'm not sure what series of ink this is from, but it's a gorgeous ink. Their prices were so good, and at the time I had kind of an idea of what I might do with such a large bottle of ink, but that has not come to pass. So I have a 120 milliliter bottle of ink. Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's, yeah, like a lifetime supply. All right, so to demonstrate this ink, I haven't actually done a swatch card yet, but as you can tell, last night I was doing some painting with ink, and it happened to be this ink in this new watercolor journal I got. And this hope you can make it out, because there's a lot going on with this ink. Let's get even closer. Hopefully you can pick up, there's, I'm gonna call it a purple sheen but it may very well be considered a red sheen. But look at that, that's... Yeah, so I'm making this book of just kind of abstract paintings using fountain pen ink. Just kind of playing with the ink, really. And then on the back, we have a proper swatch. So Birmingham Pen Company Heron, and the other side was made with ink, water, eyedropper, and paper towel. And it was done last night at 10:17 p.m. Yeah. In the swatch, you get a hint of the red or purple sheen there. But yeah, so that's the ink. Now, before we ink this up, I will say, right off the bat, I got an extra nib for it. I figured, you know, this is something I'm gonna want anyway, so I might as well just order it at the same time. So I got the 1.4 millimeter stub. Now, I'm hoping I got the right size. It now strikes me that being such a small nib, maybe this isn't the right size, but okay, it looks like the correct one. I'm assuming I checked the compatibility, so yeah, nice. I'm not prepared to have another stub nib inked up right now, but I'm definitely going to have a video about this down the road because I'm on a search for the best stub nib, and so far the leader is Kaweco. Yes. Very, very cool. So I will look forward to using this someday, but not today. All right. So we want to see how easy this is to ink up. And it's going to be super easy. So I always like to give the bottles just a little toss before I do the ink. Slurp up some of the ink. Yeah, this is gonna hold a lot of ink. I suspect I'm going to love, I'm just gonna put, well, maybe just a little bit more. I suspect I'm going to love writing with this ink. No ink leaked out. All the ink you see on my fingers is from playing with it last night. So far I have not made a mess. We're going to push this back up and recap it. But in the meantime, while we wait for that, there's an ink in particular that I really want to compare it to. And that is loaded up in my TWSBI Diamond 580 ALR. I haven't made a video on this yet. It's another recent purchase. This one, I believe, came from, I want to say, Fountain Pen Revolution? It came with a fine nib, and although I was absolutely thrilled with the fine nib, I knew I would want a broad and a medium nib as well. So I bought extra nibs for it, because this does not use the same nibs as the Eco. So yeah, I had to get extra nibs for it. So I put the broad on here, and that's actually going to be a good test comparison with the Opus 88 Halo. But the ink is what I'm most wanting to compare, because I absolutely love this ink. Now, out of the fine nib, it came out pretty dark, but out of this broad nib, it is coming out pretty light, actually. Well, lighter, more like a medium tone, I guess you might say, rather than a dark tone. So we're just going to do a little writing sample here, and then I'll do the Opus 88 Halo under that. So this is the and the ink is, because I haven't mentioned that yet, and we'll just do a little. Now the smudge test actually makes it look dry, and admittedly it was coming out a little bit dry there, but typically it pours out ink. Yeah, so I'm not quite sure what happened there, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous teal color. Coming out of a fine nib, it actually, you get a lot more of the darker tones, sometimes almost looking black, and then just like a hint of the teal color. But it's a beautiful color. I love it. So we are still waiting. We are still waiting for the ink to descend in that the Opus 88 Halo. So I figured I might as well do another writing sample with this, the ASA Galactic. And this actually is loaded up with another Birmingham Pen Company ink, Burnt Walnut. So let's check this out. So again, this is the... See, now it didn't have a hard start, so I don't know. Maybe it's working itself out. So this is the ASA pens. Now the ink flow seems, I don't know if it's just the character of the ink or if it's the pen. I think it might be the ink, actually. ASA pens Galactic, and this is so that's that one. Okay, so after like, I don't know how long it's been, like 10 minutes? Maybe closer to 5, but anyway, we finally have ink flowing. All right, so this is the and the ink is Okay. So my initial impression, the TWSBI has a much smoother nib, much smoother. Just a little feedback. This, and you probably heard it, has considerably more feedback. It definitely not scratchy, but considerably more feedback. The inks are, I don't know, it's let's do a side-by-side comparison here. All right, so this is the Birmingham Pen Company Heron, and this is the Monteverde Iced Cookie. That is a much, much smoother nib. Much smoother. Yeah, and honestly, I'm not really surprised. So chances are I'm gonna end up putting the stub nib on here, just because this broad I'm not completely happy with. I'm actually pretty disappointed, I must say. But, you know, it's still, you know, the ink is still saturating the feed, and so yeah, I'm going to give it some time and use it for a day or two and see how that goes. But the inks are different. So, not much different. So this was the Birmingham Pen Company Heron. Definitely green leaning. And more intense shading. And you see that in the writing sample as well. This is the Monteverde Ice Cookie, which again, I love. You still have some shading, it's not as intense. And this is more blue leaning. And overall, it's at least coming out of a broad nib, is a lighter ink. So, yeah. So I don't feel silly for having two of this nearly same ink, because I think they're different enough. They're both in the teal family, but one is more green leaning, one is more blue leaning. So, and you see some shading there, but not a lot. But this has intense shading, that ink. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe in this swatch, yeah, I don't know if you can see it, but in fact, let's get as close as possible. Hopefully you can pick that up. There's just a hint of the sheen there, almost creating like a halo effect, like a red or purple sheen. I'm not sure which one it is, but nice. I like it. I like it. Now the pen is another story. I love the pen itself, definitely. But the nib leaves something to be desired. Let's do a quick writing sample so I can get a little more taste of the nib. But my initial impression is not great. Okay, it's not bad, actually. It's not bad. On certain strokes, I could detect a little more feedback, but overall, it wasn't that bad. So I think the ink is starting to lubricate the nib a little bit. Yeah. And that was writing with the valve closed, so that's interesting. Of course, you know, you have it once it's saturated. You can close that and write for a short period. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. would I get another Opus 88? Probably not. At the price point, I expect the nib to be pretty much perfect. And this is a little more than half the price. And yet it has a much better nib. And honestly, I mean, this feels significant. This feels very light, and yeah, I don't know. My overall impression is a little disappointed, but still hopeful that in writing with this more, that I'm gonna enjoy it more. But yeah, there you go. My first and maybe only Opus 88, the Halo, with a broad nib. And yeah, some crazy packaging. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.